From the land of sky blue waters, welcome to the Sota Pod. Ishidroma here, and I will be joined by Seth Toupal momentarily. And I thank you all for joining wherever and whenever you are listening. Hold on. I triggered someone in the YouTube comment section. So to appease the epic commenter there, give me one sec. You happy now, bitch? Kaprizov's back. Folks, we have a huge episode here planned for you today. I'm never taking Don Cherry off the desk, by the way. And that extended Hoppy Hour vlog and multiple brewery and beer review is not quite done yet. It's almost done. I've been picking away at it, editing a little bit every single day, but last week was just crazy. I streamed all weekend on my second channel again. And then Seth and I went over an hour talking Minnesota Wild and a ton of other hockey news. So I'm going to put it on the shelf for one more week and hold me to it in the comments on the next video. If it's not there, rip me all you want. Rip me all you want. And same with the audio side of things. Leave a review. Be like, what gives, bro? 2 weeks, no Hoppy Hour? Come on. Truth be told, I've not drank any craft beer since Labor Day, but we will get back to the weekly reviews. We will get back to the weekly vlogs and extended beer reviews on the Sota Pod YouTube channel and the shortened reviews on the audio side as well. Reminder, if you're listening to the Sota Pod, wherever you get your podcast from, hey, I appreciate you. You're one of the OGs. But if you want the full experience of the show, if you want to see some of the video clips that I share with Seth on the YouTube side, check us out on YouTube at the Sota Pod on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment on the video as well, as just like rating and reviewing on the audio side of things, it just helps us get in front of more listeners. Quickly, before we bring on Seth here, I just wanted to talk about the only really NHL piece of news that we missed, which occurred today, Monday, as I finish recording and editing the show. Sidney Crosby signs a 2-year extension and, of course, $8.7 million AAV. Sidney Crosby, Sid the kid, Sid the man-child at this point. Very superstitious guy, so I'm not surprised that this is the dollar amount that they got him at, especially given how good of a player he still is, despite being in his late 30s. Sidney Crosby is worth more than an $8.7 million player, even at 37 years of age. 94 points last year, 42 goals. 93 points the year prior, 33 goals. And 84 in 69 games the year prior with 31 goals. In 2022 and 2023-24, the years he got 93 and 94 points, he played all 82 games. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. He has not lost a beat at all, despite the Penguins not really having much team success, not even making the playoffs last year. He currently ranks second in franchise history behind the greatest hockey player to ever play the game in Mario Lemieux, who tallied 1,723 points in 950 games with 690 goals and 1,033 assists. Lemieux is the NHL's 8th highest scorer, with just 2 spots above Crosby, who just climbed into the top 10. Even though Crosby first has to chase down Sakic, 45 points more to go, to jump him in the franchise history point record, he's 127 points away from tying Mario Lemieux for 8th place overall, while overtaking his once untouchable franchise records. After Crosby, the next closest player to dress for one team during their entire career and collect at least 1,400 points is Alex Ovechkin, his former rival of the Washington Capitals. Neither of the teams making playoffs anymore. God, those playoff series, those wars were amazing back in the day. And yes, it is in fact back in the day now. Ovechkin has 1,550 and counting, with Hall of Famer Stan Mikita, who played for the Chicago Blackhawks, next in line with 1,400 with 1,467 points. Speaking of Ovechkin, by the way, just congratulations to Crosby, by the way. He's going to pass Lemieux soon. It's going to be amazing. But speaking of Ovechkin, we all saw his off-season dad bod. He wasn't in shape this off-season. He's been back in North America for a month now, and he has been skating with the Capitals. At an informal practice earlier today, Ovechkin winced during a drill right at the beginning of practice and actually went back to the bench, got looked at, and was sent to the locker room. We're talking like 3 to 5 minutes into the official start of practice after warming up and stretching. It looks to be just precautionary, as he is set to talk to the media on Thursday and continue to practice and participate in preseason and full training camp. Ovechkin, by the way, sits at 853 career goals and is 42 away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time NHL goal record. Now, this is Alex Ovechkin. He very well could break that this year. He very well could tie it or break it this year, but he only got 31 goals last year, and he was arguably in better shape coming in last year. He had a slow start last year, but if he plays as good as he did in 2022-2023, even in 73 games, 42-point season, 2021-2022, 50 goals, like 31, even if he gets like 38 this year, he's going to break it the following year. And I imagine even at 40 years of age, Ovechkin will come back for another season. I don't think it will take 2 more in addition to this one to get Gretzky's goal record. But anyways, I just wanted to highlight those 2 things from Crosby and Ovechkin. They're forever linked, but shout out to the Pittsburgh Penguins fans for getting their boy Sidney Crosby for 2 more years. Despite always rooting for the Capitals over the Pittsburgh Penguins, I would rather the Penguins keep Crosby than Crosby go to freaking Montreal, or even worse, the Colorado Avalanche. NFL is here, and a new season means new ways to get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score a touchdown, money lines, and more. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the best place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's right, use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
All right, before we bring on Seth Toupal here and talk all things Minnesota Wild, Tom Kurvers Prospect Showcase, and so many stories, both NHL and from the world of hockey, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends at 7th Avenue Pizza. 7th Avenue Pizza have got you covered for all Gophers football tailgate parties. They got you covered if you're sitting at home watching NFL, start of the NHL season, hell, even if you're into baseball and watching the Minnesota Twins. The best pizza on the planet, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing people, local company as well, and we love working with them. Matt and the crew there are just awesome, and the product is outstanding. It's my favorite pizza. I will never eat another pizza again because all I need in my life is 7th Avenue Pizza. Follow them on social media to see where they are having deals. They're totally interactive. If you have any questions for them at all, they will get back to you in an instant. And if you take a picture of your pizza, or like I said, you want to interact with them, they are on it with the replies. Absolutely love working with them here on the podcast. So go support them today. 7th Avenue Pizza, a proud partner of the Sota Pod. And we are back with your friend and mine, Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild, here to talk all things Minnesota Wild and hockey as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season. I mean, we had hockey this last weekend, Seth. We had the Tom Kurvers Prospect Showcase, and pretty much every pocket of the National Hockey League had their Prospect Showcase as well. So it feels real. The time is here. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. A full year older now. And
yes, happy birthday.
Thank you. I don't feel it as much, which is great, but we really are now in full gear all the way from now until sometime, hopefully in late May. We'll be talking hockey all the time.
Yes, sir. And I mean, we've been pretty much talking hockey all the time this summer too, but it's nice that it's nice, Seth, that when prepping the show here, I had too many things to note that I had to put some of you might not call them significant. As a hockey junkie myself, I call them significant news and tidbits in the world of hockey on the shelf. And I was like, Seth, we already have a jam-packed show here today that we're going to have to talk about some of these stuff next week. And that feels good because all summer, I feel like we were scraping to find anything and everything to talk about. And I feel like we did a pretty good job of finding stories and highlighting things in the world of not just the National Hockey League, not just the Minnesota Wild bubble, but hockey as a whole that a lot of other shows didn't cover because maybe a lot of them are just Wild focused, just NHL focused. Whereas I kind of like this thing that we got going here on the Sota Pod, which obviously we open up talking Minnesota Wild, and we will get to the prospect showcase here in the first segment. But I like how we're just such big fans, and both of us are dialed into just the world of hockey, that those are topics that we were excited to highlight as well.
Oh yeah. At this point, you start to get a little more of a trickle of news, and it's fun to take some of those stories and expand upon them. And, this, as we'll talk about here in a little bit, the prospect showcase has really become just a fun way to see where some of these other players are at that make up this prospect pool. You're not going to see the big guys per se, but still plenty of names.
You'll see some literal big guys, though.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, indeed. But it's fun to kind of get back into the rhythm, so to speak.
Absolutely. Until everyone in your live chat and mine start bitching and complaining how the Wild aren't going to make the playoffs 10 games in. Fun, Seth. The hockey season has arrived. All right, let's talk about the Tom Kurvers prospect showcase here. I'm going to bring up just the roster here, the invitees, and everybody else. For those who are watching on YouTube, you can check it out. What were some names just off the top of your head that you were excited to see here? And they can be the big prospects like height. They can be some invitees. Just give me a couple, and I'll go through the rest of the list that I highlighted here.
For me, just because I'm really intrigued to see kind of where the rest of this goalie situation is at, it was the goalies for me. We got a good chance to see Samuel Levi in the World Championships. So kind of wanted to see him expand upon that. But Chase Wutzke is another name that I've really been intrigued by, because anytime you throw the term quick riser or fast riser, whatever it is, anytime you throw that term and you attach it with somebody, that usually means that they've got a lot of promise with their game. And so was excited to see those two. Obviously, some of the names defensively that we all know, Jack Pertz, Kyle Masters, Carson Lambos. Those are the ones that I think a lot of people in particular wanted to see. And then, of course, the one that we're hoping maybe has an outside chance of making the roster this year, Riley Heights. That's the big ticket for anybody that watched this weekend. He's the name that's the one that everybody wants to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And boy, did he showcase his skills. Let's just say that. So a few guys on this list, obviously there's a lot of invitees who aren't even necessarily part of the Wild organization or who aren't even signed. And maybe this is an opportunity for them to raise some eyebrows for the Wild brass and be like, oh, okay, maybe we can use you. Maybe you can be someone who we bring into our system that we straight up just sign to Iowa, as there was a couple overagers that were invited here as well. Going through the entire list, and literally I went through every single player who I wasn't familiar with on this list, and I went and watched some tape. I looked them up on HockeyDB, and the invitees and Furthermore, some new faces that were brought into the Minnesota Wild that we're excited to see were obviously Matthew Sopp, who was an overager in the OHL that Matt Hendricks signed right after his season. Now, he was an overager in the OHL. However, he only played 3 seasons in the OHL, so it wasn't like he was just dominating that league upon learning that league early. He played junior A, not at the highest level before then, and kind of worked his way up, and in a secondary role, put up insane numbers in the OHL in his last season. So yeah, it was kind of like a men against boys there, but it's not like he's the biggest guy anyways. Like, check out his stats here. We've talked about him before. 90 points, 43 goals, and he was their secondary guy. Like, he was on their second line. He wasn't their first go-to offensive piece on the Kitchener Rangers, and he still put up 43 freaking goals. So I'm interested to see how his game translates to pro. It might take a little bit of time, but I love how Matt Hendricks, upon taking over Iowa as the new general manager there, that was one of his first big moves. Another guy who was actually a WHL overager, another forward, was Jack O'Brien. Jack O'Brien here, 21 years of age, like I said. Didn't put up crazy numbers like Sopp did in Major Junior, but with the Portland Winterhawks last year, put up 54 points, 22 goals, and had a good playoff run as well. So I was interested to see how he would perform and see if he would impress any of the Wild brass there. Obviously, guys that we know about, I was excited to see Hunter Haight. I was excited to see Ryder Ritchie on the forward side and Riley Height. On the defensive side, I was very excited to see how Stevie Leskovar was going to perform. And also Jordan Torigny. Now, Jordan Torigny was a QMJHL defenseman, right shot defenseman that they invited. And you all know how I feel about the QMJHL. I think it's vastly underwhelming. Let's just say that, to put it lightly, compared to the WHL, the OHL, even the USHL and the BCHL at times as well. But he's not bad. It's not like he is an offensive defenseman first. He's kind of a hybrid, right? He's a two-way defenseman. And he put up decent numbers, 11 goals, 46 points. And he actually won a championship in his first year with his QMJHL team. And then they started to rebuild after that, which is why he was one of the top point getters on the team on the back end. And so I was interested to see, and he wasn't even an overager. He's 19 years of age, so he's going to go back to Quebec anyway. So that was cool that the Minnesota Wild invited him, and I was interested to see how he would play. Obviously, on the goalie side, Chase Wutzke and Samuel Levi, I was excited to see as well. Now, I know you were pretty busy all weekend here, and I was as well. I caught the 3 p.m. game, parts of it anyways. I had it on the background. I was doing some chores and stuff like that. But I want to give a big shout out to our friend Mateo, as he was our Sota Pod insider for this tournament here, Seth. He was the guy on the ground giving me notes, updates to everything here. So I want to start with just some of the forwards here. He said Height was easily the best prospect forward, and his line with Ritchie and Toporowski was the best. He's like, they were the ones that stood out the most. Now, we'll talk about Riley Height at the end of this segment. He said top forwards were Height, Bankier, and Haight. In that order, they all showed exactly why they have high praise amongst the fans at the organization. He said every defenseman was solid at 5-on-5. Really liked what Lambeau showed in particular. He said he was solid defensively and took the puck for a walk a few times, which, hey, that's what you want to see. That's why they drafted him. He says, I get why the brass likes Spacek too. He was probably the second or third best defenseman and ran the power play efficiently while also being responsible in his own end, which is what I like to see, because not that I'm super critical of Spacek. I never understood the hype, I'm just going to say the glazing that Michael Russo put upon this guy, really. And maybe it's his relationship with his dad, but
well, and I think a lot of the appeal with him comes with the pedigree too. Obviously he's been a winner, at pretty much every stop that he has been in his short career so far. And for a Wild organization that's, just needs more winners, that's something that they definitely could use.
I like how he's responsible in his own end. I liked how he ran the power play. Those are two positives for sure. He said Pert, Masters, and Parker all proved solid in their own end with good breakout ability. So boxes checked there as well. I'm excited to see Pert in a full pro season this year, Jack Pert, because he might be one of those odd. I mean, the Wild's prospect pool is so rich with defensemen now that there's going to be a few that are moved. There's going to be a few that maybe are used. I don't necessarily think for draft picks, but to maybe help fill in some holes on the main roster, maybe a year or two down the road when they need to really be like, okay, we're identifying this hole. We need to fill up with this piece that a prospect coming up couldn't fill, or using it as a sweetener to maybe get a Johansson, get a Freddie Gaudreau in particular, as he has the longer deal off the books, hell, even a Foligno, right? So I'm rooting for all these guys to obviously develop, to either make the Wild or be those trade chips alone or as sweeteners. And the fact that, okay, they showed well, Jack Pert might be one of those guys down the road just because, and I mean, same even with Lambos, they might be the guys. Spot check too. I mean, we don't know which one's going to hit. So I want them all to develop regardless, so that there's opportunities to still help the Wild organization, whether it's on the ice or not. Now, before we move on to goalies here, and just to have an extended talk on Riley Heidt, he said Leskovar was a menace. He said he was chucking the body around at every opportunity. He said it cost the Wild on their third goal, but he was throwing on everyone, including Colton Dock, who was 6'4". And he was throwing the body around like it was a nothing, and actually proved, like we said, like both you and I and the scouts, Spokesy, Hoppy, all identified as he has good skating skill. He even has good hands. He has a good shot, but this is why the Wild drafted him. This is why he's found success in Major Junior. And to be honest, Seth, I really think as long as he doesn't let his wires cross, and he actually, I hate to say this, but develop his hockey IQ a little bit more and really listen to the coaches and becomes just a solid piece that they use. A good soldier, for lack of a better term, right? Someone that a team can actually utilize in their game plans, in their strategy, and just not be the center of attention. I think that he could be a good piece for the Wild to use in 2 to 3 years. Again, assuming that his pro development in the AHL goes well. When this young core in a couple of years or a few years, eventually pops and tries to make it go in the playoffs. This is a guy that is playoff hockey.
Yeah, and you think about too, just what it takes to win in the postseason is, look, teams that you go up against are going to try to take any advantage that they can. And by and large, the way that they do that is trying to neutralize the top option on the team that they're playing. We saw this happen against the Dallas Stars, and there really wasn't any sort of response. There was a little bit of response by the Minnesota Wild, but having players like this in the lineup until fighting is completely disallowed in the league, this is how you respond. And he's going to get opportunities, especially if he hits hard. He's going to get opportunities because that's something that Bill Guerin values in this organization. And a few years down the road, you're probably not going to have a Zach Bogosian on that back end. You may still have Jake Middleton, but you're going to always have room for Thump. And so if he
you're going to have to have a fear factor on your team.
Yeah.
A guy who can help police the game when the Zebras can't.
Yeah, if he continues to improve and continues to show promise, there's going to be a spot for him, hands down.
And I think it's even less about, because obviously he can fight. Look at his penalty minutes as last year. He's 20 years of age. I imagine he's going to go back as an overager. I don't, because I haven't heard anything of him coming over to the ECHL team in Iowa or the Wild yet, the Iowa Wild. So if he does go back as an overager, fine, whatever. But I'm just so excited. I would rather him actually be brought over to the ECHL. Get him reps there. Get him maybe some, if there's injuries in Iowa or whatnot, maybe give him a rep or two in the AHL. But let's get this 20-year-old's pro development underway, because he's a man against boys, man. Look at some of these highlights from the tournament. Boom! An 81, sick number, by the way. Whether he keeps it or not, I dig it. And look, he's continuing to throw.
Jeez.
For those of you listening on the podcast, come over to YouTube. Check it out. Oh, my God, dude.
Yeah, and then
he's a menace. He's a menace, and he's... Boom! What a hit.
Then he goes and tries to separate 43's head from his body.
Dude, that's why they drafted him. That's what you want to see. So I'm excited that at the showcase, he did just that. Showcase his abilities, right? Showcase his abilities. Mateo said with some of the other guys that we listed there, he said Trigny was decent and got in a comical showdown with Doc, which was good. So at least he made some noise out there, but maybe not enough to impress the Wild brass to sign him. He said Sop was noticeable when he got the puck and made smart plays, but just him, Bankier, and Novak didn't seem to gel on the same line. But the fact that he looked good with the puck and was noticeable, okay, that's fine. I'm happy with that, because he's going to have time to gel with whoever he ends up playing with in the AHL. So just glad that he wasn't unnoticeable and or a deterrent out there at all. He said O'Brien didn't show at all and got limited minutes. Now, on the goalie side of things, he said that Levi played solid, but he was yanked at one point because the Wild just wanted to give all the goalies some reps. So he was yanked in the start of one of the games in the third period for McClellan, who gave up one week one after coming cold and then didn't really face much else. But he said when Levi played, he was good, which again, as the guy who's going to get a lot of games in the AHL, I'm happy for that. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, like you just want to see signs of progress from these different guys. And we saw it last year. Like, the Wild are only going to be as good as the depth that they have when injury comes knocking. They probably won't hopefully have to deal with injuries as much as they did this past season, but if you do,
knock on wood.
Yeah, if you do, you need to have people that can step in any capacity to be able to help you out.
Oh, I missed this text from him. He also said Leskovar did get in a fight at the showcase. So there you go. Checked all.
Now we're talking.
He did say Woodsky was hung out to dry. Today from the looks of it. Not necessarily a cause for concern, but like, he is the youngest goaltender in the system. He just made the jump to major junior recently. So it's like, it sucks that he didn't show well, but like, I'm not incredibly concerned. I think he'll have a good year. And then I think next year he'll probably impress as a guy coming in with more confidence, knowing that he's not like the third man out sort of thing. The guy who's going to get the last day, hung out to dry, like Mateo said. So I'm not concerned, but I wish he would have showed a little bit better. Yeah.
It's I think you said it perfectly. It's not cause for concern, but you want to see just a little bit, something that stands out. I think that's the big thing in these types of showcases and in preseason games. You just want to see something that stands out.
Yeah, but again, he's so young. Just turned 18. Had his first season in the WHL last year. Put up decent numbers for a guy who was 17-year-old playing in the league. So, and goalies take time to develop. So like, we're not even going to see this guy play pro games for a long time. And hey, if he has an absolutely stellar season this year, goes back to junior one more year and then gets the call up, then great. That's awesome. But like at 20, but yeah, I think he's going to, whether it's in Red Deer or not, he's going to play he's going to play his next 2 years, maybe even 3 as an overager in the WHL. And I'm okay with that as long as he shows better next year at the showcase, Seth. All right, well, let's talk about the star of the show here. Let's talk about the star of the show, Riley Heidt. he was the standout player from all the highlights that I watched, from the game that I watched, from Mateo's texts, from Hoppy's Twitter posts, from everybody. He was the star of the show, which good. That's the first box that needs to be checked in his, I guess, path to making the Minnesota Wild roster either full-time this season or at least opening night. Joe Smith of The Athletic and of Fellowship of the Rink, he wrote a great article last week talking about how it's not necessarily the easiest path and it might not have anything to do with his play. Now, if he plays outstanding, the Wild will make the adjustments to get this guy on the roster. But it's not necessarily the most realistic shot to make the team. The Wild are going to give him every chance to make the team, according to Billy Guerin, because Billy Guerin praises this kid a lot. He said he has that, fuck you aspect to his game. He has high hockey sense. He's a gamer. He's a competitor. He has the skill, and he loves to compete. A, those are all great things to see in a pro hockey player and a National Hockey League player. And B, those are all things that Billy Guerin loves to see as a general manager of his team as well. The only annoying thing is Wallstedt will have to be in the AHL on opening night for the money even to work, as if he's on the team, there's around $500,000 left for cap space, and Riley Heidt, that's not enough for Riley Heidt, as he's around the 800,000 or even 900,000 mark, which is crazy to think about, right? And furthermore, Seth, what the fuck are the Wild thinking starting with 3 goalies when he's not going to play opening night?
I really don't get this. Like, if you're not going to commit to Jesper playing some, and we've talked about it over the off season.
Oh, everyone knows my stance on it. I think it's ridiculous for him to be on this team, sitting in the press box and not getting games in the AHL. Well, I think it's so dumb.
He is much better served at this point in his career playing, and if you don't have enough starts for him consistently at the NHL level, you're not doing him any favors by being on the roster and just sitting. Like, I understand the overarching, like, we want to make sure that Marc-Andre Fleury has a chance to kind of mentor him and show him the ropes. There are other ways to do that. Like, there are other ways to make sure that they get in the goalie room together without having Jesper be the third wheel of a 3 goalie rotation.
I just think that doesn't matter at all anymore, because Fleury's going to retire. Like, me personally, I don't give a shit about that at all, to be perfectly honest. Well, Fleury's likely going to work with this team after. Let him coach him, guide him then, right? Yeah. If anything, Fleury needs to make sure that Gustafsson is on point this year, because Gustafsson is likely going to be the 1A or 1B next year with Wallstedt, if all things work out. I don't understand this notion of, let's just trade Gustafsson midseason. Okay, so then next year you have 1 rookie goalie and no at least proven NHL back wheel 1A or 1B. That shit pisses me off. If anything, the fans shouldn't be mad at Gustafsson. They should be mad at Fleury for signing 1 more year and delaying this whole thing. And I'm not here saying that everyone should just start shitting on Fleury. I'm saying that's the reality of the case, Seth.
Yeah, that's the whole point here, is that this notion, and I've tried to kind of push back on this too, this notion that, well, because Fleury came back, we need to free up a space for Jesper by moving on from Gustafsson just crazy, for the sake of trading him. Like, then you're going into next season with a full question mark in the goalie room, because you've got Jesper, and we're hoping that he gets to the point that he is like a franchise goalie. But he's not going to be that right away. No. And so you then are saying, all right, we got 82 games this year. They're all yours. Go ahead. Good luck. Like, that makes no sense.
And Gustafsson doesn't have that much value right now. So it's like, what are we, like, furthermore, like, what are we even doing there? What are we even doing there? It makes no sense to me at all. And what does it tell Kaprizov, who wants to win, who's coming up for a contract extension? Like, if you show him at least you have a little bit of a plan, at least a safety net in Gustafsson, who even last year, people, it wasn't a great year for him. It wasn't a bad year for him, man. This whole team wasn't that great last year, right? Like,
it was basically 2 months that sank Gustafsson's season last year.
Yeah, in the eyes of the fans for sure. And look, like I was critical of him. Hoppy was critical of him. You were critical of him, but like he wasn't the reason that the Wild were losing all the games.
No, like
He had a couple stinkers. Don't get me wrong, but like every goalie does throughout a season, man. Every top goalie does as well.
Well, look at how volatile the goalie position has been over the last few years. Like, you've got proven guys who have had just absolute stinkers of seasons. Like, as the league continues to focus more and more on offense, it becomes harder and harder to be a good goalie in the league.
Yeah.
So that's just how it works.
And I don't understand why people are reluctant, scoff, or just push aside the fact that Matt Hendricks is a smart guy running this Iowa team. Clearly, if he and his coaching staff strategically, and I brought this up before, strategically look at the schedule, look at what AHL teams have guys who may not be NHL caliber, but who have NHL caliber shots, and the teams who are the top AHL teams who could probably hold their own against the bottom of the NHL teams right now, sort of thing, and make sure that Wallstedt gets those starts. That is a developmental strategy. And I feel like fans don't even think about those kind of things, Seth, which like maybe he doesn't get the starts against some of the top teams, but they've highlighted that, okay, this middle of the pack AHL team has 4 or 5 guys who have NHL shots. And that's what he needs right now is to develop, making those saves against guys with NHL shots. Like, and that's just one little thing to a bigger equation. Like, those are kind of things that people who say, okay, he's too good for the AHL. Sure, I agree that if Fleury wasn't here, he'd be ready for the NHL. But does that mean that we're just going to hamper his development for a year, put him in the box and not give him those reps where it's the AHL GM, coaches, and staff's job to develop these guys? Absolutely not. We need him down there.
At the end of the day, he is not best served by being the third goalie. Like, at the end of the day, at this stage in his development, getting consistent starts, and there will be injuries.
He'll be the call-up. He'll be the third guy for call-up, but I don't want to see the third guy in the box, dude.
No, that does not serve him. That doesn't serve him any good, because this notion of like getting used to the NHL experience, guess what? Guys do that while they're playing all the time. Like, it happens where you kind of experience what it's like to be an NHLer while you're playing in the lineup. Like, if you're not going to give him a steady diet of NHL starts, then don't have him up there.
Yeah. Well, and back to like what started this conversation, it hampers potentially having a spot for Riley Heidt or Liam Ogren. Now I know Liam Ogren can be set down to the AHL. He's got that 2-way contract. He's already a pro, whereas Riley Heidt has to be sent back down to junior if he doesn't make the team. And again, if he plays so well that the Wild are forced to keep him, I imagine Wallstedt will be sent down. But like, that's just one hurdle that I just don't get at all. But regardless, to now further swoon over Height here, he actually has really developed his penalty kill in the last year as well, which is amazing because prior to this season going into the WHL, he was more so an offensive, tenacious player. He was utilized a lot on the PK. A, his offense didn't suffer, and B, he actually helped the team a lot on the PK, and he likes playing penalty kill, Seth. He actually said, I would rather be a 360 type player than just a offensive type player. So he's like, even if I'm utilized more on the penalty kill than I am getting offensive zone starts, for example, he's like, I'm okay with that. He's like, if anything, I want to help my team win. Points don't matter to him on a like a personal, from a personal side of things. To be the best, he wants to be the best for the team, not be the best for the sake of just being the best, which is what I love. Right? He's not playing for the awards; he's playing for the award, which is the Stanley Cup or his junior championship, which is what I love about this player.
Well, and he, like Brad Bombardier raved about that during development camp, is it shows that he has an understanding that he is more likely to be on the roster if he has multiple elements that he can help. And he identified, because it wasn't that hard to see, the penalty kill last year was terrible for pretty much the entirety of the season. And so this is a guy who knows that he is going to be on an NHL roster at some point for his offense, saying, I could probably get here a little quicker if I work on this other aspect of my game. And that's the kind of thing that I think you ask any coach, somebody that's willing to put in the time to get better at a part of their game that they're not maybe as good at. 100 times out of 100, they'll take those guys over the players that are maybe better in one particular area, but then that's all they bring. Like, multifaceted players are very valuable in the NHL. And so if Riley Heidt can be that, that's going to fast track him even more.
Yeah, well, and you said it there. Bombardier was absolutely blown away of his competitiveness at the junior development camps. He said the only thing that maybe he needs to improve on is his strength. But I feel like this offseason, from what Joe Smith and Hoppy reported to me anyways, that like he was working on his strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
Right? Like he was on the ice, don't get me wrong, but like he was, all right, I got to get bigger if I'm going to make the NHL. And he is confident that he's making the NHL, Seth. He's 100% confident that like I am making this team. And again, that's what I love to hear. That's what I love to hear. And these are the type of guys who he's been studying the last 2 years, really studying. And that's what's so cool about this age of like YouTube and things like that, where like film is so easy to come by, not necessarily even just through your junior team, your NHL team, your manager, whatever. Like you can just go on YouTube and watch these things. He says he studies everything Sidney Crosby does as far as his compete, and as far as puck skills, everything Kucherov does in handling the puck. And he says that those are some of the biggest things that he watches. And get this. This is one kind of out of left field, but who do you think he's been watching working on defensive zone attributes and plays?
Oh boy.
It's out of left field, so like it's super random. But it's related to the Wild and Iowa.
You got me.
Matt Hendricks. Which I thought was just hilarious, like full 360 back to the Wild organization. And just he wants to be a complete player, which is awesome. Now, the way that the Wild roster is shaped right now, even without Wallstedt on the roster, like he has to beat out Ogren for that spot. Or if Ogren impresses as well, the Wild have to trade one of Goudreau or Johnson. Now, theoretically, they could maybe trade one of the other guys, but I doubt Foligno's being moved at the start of this season, right? Just because his no trade stuff kicks in, and this is the start of that new contract. He's someone that I would say, taking a step back and contracts aside, like yes, it would be Johansson, Goudreau, or Foligno would be the best trade chips, but because the Wild decided to lock him up in that big three last year, that's just not going to happen this year. Now there is a possibility that he beats Kuznetsov out for a spot as well, which I think Kuznetsov has basically played his way onto this team based on last year. You could make an argument that Ogren has as well. I just don't think the sample size was enough. But like realistically, he has to beat out one of those three young guys, or the Wild are going to have to make room for him. Now, best case scenario. Shout out to the Trailer Park Boys. He and Ogren and Kuznetsov, ideally all three of them play tremendously well. Again, I think Kuznetsov's going to. I think Ogren's going to as well. But ideally, they all play so well that the Wild go, oh, fuck, we do have to trade Goudreau or Johansson. And that would not only please the fan base, but I think that would honestly be good for the team. Because again, now you're getting two more prospects that, knock on wood, are going to be part of that young and upcoming core that's hopefully going to be the new faces, the new identity, this new wave of Minnesota Wild, who actually, and we hope, have an opportunity to be competitive, get out of the first round, and again, maybe be a Stanley Cup team in the next in this next era of Minnesota Wild hockey.
I think Bill Guerin is going to play it like this. Obviously, the hope is that this team gets through preseason without any sort of injuries like we had last year, where Jared Spurgeon got hurt against Chicago. And so let's just say, hypothetically, you get through the preseason without any injuries, and Riley Heidt has done enough to where the discussion is he's got to be on the roster. Because at this point, if we are trying to make the postseason, him in the lineup gives us the best chance to do it. If that's how it plays out, Bill Guerin has a decision to make at the end of the preseason before the season starts. And, that's going to, I'm sure, involve going to one of those guys with a no trade list and saying, look, your role here has diminished. We want to get you to a spot where you're going to be a little more of a focal point. And I know you probably don't want to move, but we're going to put you in a situation where you have a better chance to be an impact player. But what is likely going to happen is that somebody will get hurt during the preseason. And whether that be being banged up to start the year or having to potentially go on injured reserve, then at that point,
let's hope not, by the way.
well, that's the other side of the coin is, you either get through preseason relatively unscathed or we have what happened last year happen again. And in that case, if it's a forward, that opens up a roster spot, and then you're probably looking at Riley Heights filling that spot anyway. But Bill Guerin's going to have to make the decision because he talked about it at the end of last season. Like, when these kids are ready to play, we'll make sure that there are spots ready for them. So he's said it, but now it comes down to the actual action of opening up a spot if Riley Height plays his way onto the roster. And so who that may be, I think a lot of people have zeroed in on a few that they would like to see with a change of scenery. But at the end of the day, it's all on Bill Guerin to make that happen.
Yeah. And lastly, before we move on here, his coach in Prince George, Riley Height, he's admitted that there's nothing more he can do in junior. So, like, he's even saying, like, we'll take him. We'll take him because we'll sure as hell be down to go on another run and, dominate the WHL, our division, and try to make another run at the Memorial Cup if they win the WHL and get there. But he's even admitted, like, penalty kill, that was the last piece to his puzzle. He found it last year. Like, there's nothing more really that he can do at the WHL. Now there's obviously, like, Scott Wheeler of The Athletic. He was saying that, like, I think him being, going back to junior could serve him well. Sure, like, he's going to do good again. It's not like he's going to regress. He might put up the same numbers or even more. But, like, if his coach is saying that, like, I can't help him develop anymore, the next step is pro. I mean, that, for me personally, that speaks louder than a hockey writer and scout.
Yeah. Yeah, if the coach is saying that I've given him all he needs, then,
or even just like the organization, like,
yeah,
and just the league, like, there's nothing more from here, right?
Take that to the bank.
Take that to the bank, indeed. Dude, another player who can take that to the bank, and he will be banking millions when he does make the National Hockey League. And hell, he's making millions. I don't know if he's making millions right now, but he's making a pretty penny in pro right now. Is Rasmus Kumpulainen, man. What a way to start off his pro career in Liga. Now, he elected to not go back to the Ontario Hockey League. He elected to go to his hometown team, his favorite team as a child there in Finland, the Pelicans, which, by the way, hilarious and amazing jerseys. And in his first game, Seth, 3 points, 2 goals. Now, will this continue at this rate? I mean, if he's a 3-point player every night, hell freaking yeah, he's going to be there for 2 years, which is awesome. Once he hits 21, come over, likely get a shot to make the Minnesota Wild roster. At the very least, have a cup of coffee in Iowa, and the Wild will be able to get him on a rookie deal, which is amazing, even though he's played 2 years pro. This is a great start. Check out just some of the film on him as well.
Tukiaisen lapaa jakaa Vilenille, joka pyrkii palauttamaan. Nyt on paikka laukoon ja sieltä tulee! Pelikans tasoittaa ylivoimalla 33 sekuntia. Tarvitsee tämä mies. Liigakauden avausmaalin tekemiseen ja Rasmus Kumpulainen heti liigadebyytissä
Love the jerseys. That color's so sick.
7:58 pelattu ja 2 maalia nähty Jyväskylässä.
Right to the center. Boom! No one on him either. Now, bigger ice, obviously. But he played on small ice in junior, right? So I like how he's got that experience already a little bit as well. But beautiful goal there. Beautiful play. Excited that his development at pro has started off well. Especially because league is not a high-scoring league, right? So, like, he likely won't be point per game at the end of the season, but if he is, holy fuck, Seth, that's huge. Because like it's a tough league to play in. Unlike the SHL, it's more of a defense-heavy league, and they do play hybrid ice there in Liga. It's not like the SHL and the KHL where it's like Olympic size ice. It's like half the size, or it's like in between NHL and North America and KHL and SHL. Which I like as well. I'm a big fan of the Finnish Liga, but I'm a fan of this kid, man, and I'm like, so excited that the start of his pro career overseas and his next developmental path for the Wild is going good thus far.
His stock has risen tremendously over the last like year, especially, but he just seems like one of those guys who maybe wasn't on the radar for a lot of people that forces his way into the conversation and ends up being those prospects every now and again that make big impacts that you don't necessarily expect.
Absolutely. So excited to see his development there. Okay, before we turn the page on Wild news here, or just Wild talk here, let's wrap up getting your opinion on the Soda Pod and Sound the Foghorns Minnesota Wild prospect rankings for the summer of 2024. We wrapped up the episode. We wrapped up all the YouTube clips and the YouTube video. Yes, I got absolutely roasted on the last episode, as I expected, but there were a few people who like didn't accuse me of smoking crack. There are a few people who actually were like, I get where you were coming from. And then to those who are going to accuse me of smoking crack in this episode here, there wasn't a firm criteria, okay? It just happened to be that my criteria was different than the boys'. That's all. But anyway, Seth, our power rankings 1 to 5, pretty similar with the other guys. Mine were a little bit different. What are your thoughts on our list? How would you rank them? And what were your thoughts on my criteria?
It is interesting because you look at these 5 guys, and I think there's a pretty strong possibility that these all end up not just being NHLers, but like impact guys, which is super exciting for this Minnesota Wild roster. And, you're talking about starting goalie, franchise goalie, number 1 defenseman, borderline top line center, and a couple of guys that profile maybe a second line impact scoring. Like that's a large part of your starting roster that is just waiting in the pipeline. Now, how I would probably do it is pretty similar to where things are at right now. I would put Jesper at number 1.
Which I had, by the way. I just want to say.
Yeah, there was only one person that didn't have Jesper as number 1.
Yeah, and that person, State of Hoppy, was the one who was the most bullish on shitting on my ranking. But anyways.
But here's the thing. Here's how I would do this. It depends entirely on Danila Yurov could really break this list. If he ends up being a number 1 center, like as it seems like he's kind of trending towards being more of a center as opposed to a wing, or at least he has the ability to play center. That appeals to me much, much more. And so
him being a top winger?
Yeah. And so I would put him at 2.
Oh, I like that.
Because
I think
if he's
Justin and Hoppy were the only other. Oh, and Z put him at 2 as well.
If he's going to be a center, that has just tremendous value. Like
okay.
Impact scoring as he is expected to provide. I probably still go Zeev at 3, just because, again, his profile is projected. And if Yurov is a wing, I put him 3rd and Zeev 2nd. But let's just assume that he's going to be a center. So I'll put Yurov 2, Boyum 3. I'm putting Riley Heidt at 4 because, again, just the playmaking level that he could bring, that he should bring, is massive. And it's not like it's not saying that Ogren is not going to be a good player, because he is. He's just going to bring something a little different to the table.
Yeah.
But I'm putting my list together based off of these guys achieving what we expect that they will. Not necessarily that they will, but I think even at the worst, I think all 5 are NHL players. And that's a pretty strong baseline, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just judged on like what I saw, and if I saw guys in pro who were playing good against pros, like I was just gonna by default rank them a little bit higher because it's not that I was shitting on Zeev, putting him a little bit lower. It's not like I was shitting on I had Height at, what did I have Height at, like 4. It's not that I was even shitting on Danila Yurov, having him at 5. Yeah, he's playing pro in the KHL and he played tremendously there. It's just like I saw 2 guys play NHL games. So, like, I just, by default, I'm like, okay, they were good in the NHL. I'm going to put them a little higher on my list, which is why I put friggin' Huznadinov so high. It's because, like, he was one of their top prospects. And I said this, too, on the prospect show. Like, likely when we see Zeev in the NHL, when we see Ogren and or Riley Heidt have a lot of games this year, he's probably going to drop in my rankings. But, like, I'm sorry. Like, out of all of them, I'm ranking what I've seen. And yeah, when I've only seen guys in junior or in their domestic league or whatever, I will make my rankings accordingly on based on best junior players or best, domestic league players or best AHL players or whatever. But like when I see guys already in the NHL, even though they're like they're farther ahead because they're older, it's just like I can't just shit on the NHL guy by putting him lower when like what I've seen against the pros, I like, and I'm still projecting him to be a solid player. Now, Zeev is probably going to rise on my list, right? But people were getting so mad because I had number 1 Wallstat, number 2 Huznadinov, number 3 Liam Ogren, number 4 Riley Heidt, number 5 Danila Yurov, which honestly, him and Heidt could have gone, it could have been interchangeable, and number 6 Zeev. Like, those are the best prospects that the Wild have right now, and I was getting roasted, dude. I was getting absolutely roasted.
Well, it just goes to show you that all of these lists are purely the eye of the beholder, because we're all looking at different things. Like we're all looking at different criteria, and that's the beauty of rankings lists. Yeah,
and again, this was rankings for the summer of 2024. They always are going to change. And by the way, put in Stevie Leskovar at number 15 is looking a lot better for me now. So I'm just saying. Oh, man. I love it, Seth. This episode of the Sota Pod is brought to you by BetterHelp. And look, ladies and gentlemen, everyone goes through ups and downs. Everyone goes through rough patches in life. And it's important to identify and stay true to your self-care routine. Whether that's leg day at the gym or therapy day. Is your schedule packed with summer activities for the kids, work that's keeping you inside versus enjoying the good weather? Or are all the boxes checked and you're confused as to why you're feeling down? Sometimes we can have everything in the world that makes us happy and we still don't feel right. Sometimes we need to talk about it with somebody and a shoulder to lean on. Therapy should be in those non-negotiable self-care routines if that's the case. And if you haven't talked to anybody before, if you haven't talked to a therapist and you're thinking about it now, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient and suitable to your schedule. So right off the bat, there's a stress lifted off your shoulder. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if you feel like that person is not a fit for you. Just like those who use the gym for self-care, much like myself, never skip your run day, never skip your leg day, never skip your therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Again, to get 10% off your first month here today. We're looking out for you guys. BetterHelp.com/THPN. Take advantage of our deal and start feeling better today with BetterHelp. Let's turn the page from Wild Talk here now and talk about just some stories around the world of the National Hockey League. Starting with Robert Thomas talking about how he was training this offseason with some of the Oilers. He was actually eating lunch after a training session with McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman when the news of the St. Louis Blues offer sheet. Well, I was going to say fiasco, but brilliant game planning is how I will. Brilliant execution of their plan.
Tactical
ploy. That's better. Occurred. And he told Michael Russo that it was very awkward and they were not too happy about it.
Yeah, I don't imagine they were, because those two guys were, especially in the case of Holloway, like he was expected to be a big part of Edmonton's future. And with just how important they are to the team, like McDavid's not blind to that. Like he knows full well. And so I'm sure he looked at that situation and just was like,
Another L. We just lost the Stanley Cup. Everyone got to see us in our locker room because of whoever's idea was to do that like all access story, which
I would not do that.
As someone who was rooting for the Florida Panthers, I thought that was hilarious, but I totally understand for those who are rooting for the Oilers or those Canadians who are just like, I root for any Canadian team because I'm Canadian. Any Canadian NHL team, I should say. They were not happy about that. But anyway, I just like to, every now and then we see a cheeky Russo comment, actually more so these days than in years past. And this one was all cheeks.
I got a good chuckle out of it too. Like I can just imagine that conversation and both of them, McDavid and Draisaitl, just being like, "Huh?
Are you kidding? Yeah.
What happened?
Oh my goodness!
I tell you."
Another story here, Seth, which was amazing. All-star goaltender, Hall of Famer, let's just say it right now, Roberto Luongo won everything except for a Stanley Cup. Well, actually, no, he has won a Stanley Cup now. It wasn't on the ice, but he's part of the Florida Panthers management, and he's going to get his name on the cup after this year's win. So I guess he has won everything. Also now helping a beer league hockey team, not necessarily win their championship yet, but helping them go further in the playoffs. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. Roberto Luongo laced up these skates again and responded to a goalie needed ad on Facebook and helped a beer league team defeat the defending champions in their league in a playoff game 4-2. Now he did let in 2 goals. I will say that. But hey, he's a little rusty now. Check out the player's reaction as he enters the locker room.
Ready, boys? These are really boys. We need some defense, okay? Put some defense in there.
Oh, how cool is that? And I actually have a little bit of footage from gameplay. Shout out to the Morning Skate who shared this with me originally. Then the NHL and Florida Panthers, I think, took their video and ran with it. But the Morning Skate, longtime podcast and YouTube channel. They're awesome, by the way, guys. But check out some of this gameplay footage. The man, the myth, the legend.
Hasn't lost a step.
Oh, man. What an absolute beauty.
That's the equivalent of Bill Murray in Space Jam coming out of the locker room in uniform and saying, perhaps I can be of some assistance.
Right? Oh, man. It's so cool because, like, I mean, as a Canucks fan, I've always known he was a down-to-earth guy. it was a hostile environment during that era for Roberto Luongo with the Vancouver Canucks. Now, there were a lot of highs, but there were some lows. Him getting the captaincy, probably not the best idea, Mike Gillis and crew there. But after that, obviously, helped the team get to a Stanley Cup final, was so close to winning the Stanley Cup there. And then, was part of that aging team where pieces were dealt. The final straw was when, former coach of the Vancouver Canucks, John Tortorella, picked a young Eddie Lack over him for their Heritage Classic game to start, even though that season was gone. It wasn't like those points are really going to help them at all, win or lose. And obviously he was dealt back to the Florida Panthers, where his career began, and actually had some good seasons with them before hanging up the skates. Obviously now working in management with the Florida Panthers, has reaped the benefits and actually has helped the team get some success here to a Stanley Cup championship. But where I'm getting with it is I've always known of Roberto Luongo's personality, just being a Canucks fan and seeing him play there for so many years. It's cool to see the hockey world understand just how much of a gem Roberto Luongo is. And furthermore, as a Canadian hockey fan, he's won Olympic gold. He's played for Olympic teams. He's been one of my favorite goaltenders for a very long time. And it's just cool to see how everybody now in the hockey world gets to further understand how much of a beauty he is.
Oh yeah. This is the part that I enjoy. You maybe don't get a chance to see the personality these players bring while they're playing, but just an all-timer. And how cool was it for those guys in that beer league to see an all-time great walk in and say, "All right, boys, let's go get it."
You got to imagine though them just being hockey guys, that they were chirping him when he led a couple goals in.
Oh, for sure.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Hey, I couldn't have defended that any better.
Yeah.
Thanks for ruining the shutout.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we have some more tragic news, Seth, that has occurred in the hockey world. I mean, shoot, man, it feels like towards the end of this summer, when it rains, it's been pouring as far as deaths in the hockey world. We obviously talked about the Gaudreau family last week. We talked about Bure. Now, 2 more deaths in the hockey world, Seth. And the first one I want to talk about here and pay my respects and pay our respects to is former NHL player Stephen Peat, who died after a tragic accident. The accident was 2 weeks ago, and he died a couple days ago due to injuries. He was a WHL player, born in British Columbia, Canada. He played in the AHL, played most of his NHL career with the Washington Capitals, despite being drafted by the Anaheim Ducks in the second round, 32nd overall. He was an enforcer. He was fighting some demons, dealing with some mental health issues, which he believed was brought on by CTE, and him fighting a lot and taking a lot of damage, physical damage, to being that rough and tough hockey player early in his career. He faced a lot of demons post-career as well, Seth, fighting addiction, which again, he said he believes were symptoms of CTE. And recently he was living in a truck and couch surfing, and sometimes even just, homeless in Vancouver, in the lower mainland of British Columbia. And he was quoted saying in a recent article that was talking, that was based around, CTE in sports and CTE in hockey particularly. Oh, and this is just a gut-wrenching quote, but he was quoted saying, I just want the headaches to go away. Now, on the day that I heard the news, Labor Day weekend, of the Gaudreau's passing, I received a text from a friend of mine who is very much part of the enforcer hockey world, and he sent me a couple Facebook posts and texts from a friend of Stephen Peat named Howie Zeron, who said, "It's been a struggle for sure. I've been trying to go and find him every week, if for no other reason to bring him some food, have a bullshit with him. I usually track him down once every couple months, as he's been bouncing around all over the lower mainland. When I do find him, we have some good laughs, but besides that, nothing good. The boys and I feared that a call in the middle of the night wasn't going to happen, or was eventually going to happen, but this night was still awful. We went and saw him at the hospital. It was heartbreaking. There's always hope, but nobody there had anything positive to say about his condition. I just got the good old line, we will see what he's like tomorrow and hope for positive news. Howie then posted in the Enforcer Facebook group, I went to visit my buddy Stephen Pete. He's on life support after being run over this morning. This was 2 weeks ago. He will need a miracle. We will need a miracle for him to come back. Sorry to add to the heartache today. Again, the day that we all heard about the Gaudreau news, of the Gaudreau family news. But this group and the hockey world should know. So he was run over, Seth. So it wasn't just a car accident. He was run over, which is just heartbreaking, man. So again, just wanted to say rest in peace to Stephen Pete. You know, a pro hockey player. Someone who's clearly loved still by his friends and just like the Enforcer and hockey community. And it just, like I said, when it rains, it pours, man. When it rains, it pours. He had a fun career. He was a great fighter. He was an awesome teammate. And my friend, Darren, who is the host of the Fourth Line Voice podcast and runs one of the biggest hockey fight YouTube channels, clip YouTube channels. He knew Pete personally, and he was just absolutely gutted. Because he was texting me and he's like, I know the hockey world's hurting today, but like people should know about Stephen Pete as well. And I said, of course I'm going to talk about him, man. Of course I'm going to talk about him.
Yeah, just anytime you see these types of stories about former players that are just struggling, it's gut wrenching. Yeah. And it's just a really tragic end to his life. And like his friend said, it just, you know, you get to the point where you're kind of just waiting for a call, and I can't imagine. It's awful.
It's awful, especially because he had some support as well, right? He had guys still checking on him, but he was clearly suffering.
Yeah.
Man, another story that came up just a few days ago. 21-year-old junior hockey player, didn't play high level junior, but actually was a pioneer in growing this actually Quebec ball hockey league, Deke Hockey. Zachary Bourassa out of Quebec. He also died after going into cardiac arrest during a game against Trois-Rivières. He was a Deke Hockey goalie, and during a game, started calling for help mid-game before collapsing. Just the ref, the official of the game, actually went and like embraced him, and he died in his arms. Despite several attempts to try to revive him on scene by the nurses and respiratory therapists, they simply could not, and he passed before even getting to the hospital. He had a passion to help grow Deke hockey and ball hockey, not only in Quebec, but in North America, and just want to pay our respects and say rest in peace to Zachary Bourassa, as well as everyone who was part of that game, the referee, his teammates, the opposition, the staff, the nurses and respiratory therapists, because that's just a traumatic incident all around. And obviously, like, prayers, warm thoughts, and our deepest condolences to his family as well, because that's far too young. Man, two NHL players, a minor league player, a junior player / ball hockey player, all in 1 month. It's been a tough month for the hockey world. It's been a tough month for the hockey world, man. So just wanted to bring it up because I know, obviously, with even the celebration of life occurring last week for the Gaudreau family, and as tragic as that is, and how much that shook us, and if you guys want proof of that, I mean, Seth and I, we had a pretty deep conversation about that on our last episode, but I didn't want that, and I hope this doesn't come across as like disrespectful or anything, but I didn't want that to overshadow these players as well, right? And the respect and the respect that they deserve in us talking about them and paying our respects and condolences to them as well. Condolences to their family and friends as well. So hard right turn, as we say here, but we're going to take it. And this will uplift us a little bit after those tough stories here, Seth, as we get into just some world hockey news. An amazing promo video was shared by a junior A team in Alberta, the AJHL, which isn't as good as the BCHL, isn't as good as the USHL, but out of every other junior league in Canada, I would say it's the second best junior league in Canada, whereas the BCHL is a massive step above. But we do see a lot of NCAA teams, D1 recruit from the AJHL. I mean, like half of fucking Omaha's roster was from Calgary and the AJHL. And we also see top NHL prospects come out of the AHL. Mind you, it's mostly the Okotoks or the Brooks Bandits, which, by the way, the Okotoks logo is basically a ripoff from the Minnesota Fighting Saints. I shouldn't say ripoff. It's an ode to the Fighting Saints. Same colors and everything, so that's pretty cool. But anyways, the AJHL's Calgary Canucks had a great little promo here to help sell tickets for their opening night. Check it out.
Trust fall. Can't trust everything in life, but you can trust us for an awesome game day experience. Come to our home opener Saturday the 14th. See you there.
I love that because we will see like club hockey teams and things like that have like quirky videos, and obviously I feel like college players have a little bit more confidence as they're just a little bit more developed. They're a little bit older. The fact that these guys are clearly like the worst actors ever. They're just like high school junior hockey players putting together, and there's more reels that they did to sell tickets, but that one just made me laugh, Seth. So I wanted to give a shout out to the Calgary Canucks.
What do we call that? A trust fail?
Trust fail. Yeah, for sure. By the way, just a little bit of history on the Calgary Canucks, by the way. They've been around since 1985. They won championships in 1990 and 8 more after that until winning last year in 2024. They're actually selected to host the 2025 Centennial Cup, which is the National Junior A Championship Tournament, which is awesome. It's a round robin of all 9 Canadian Junior A hockey leagues in Canada. They've had no drafted players yet to the National Hockey League in recent years anyways. I mean, I didn't go back and take a deep dive into the 80s, but I highly doubt it. But hey, they won a championship last year, and they still have a pretty damn good roster going into this year as well as the host team for the Centennial Cup. So shout out to the AJHL's Calgary Canucks. Another story I want to talk about here quickly, which I thought was really cool, Seth, were 2 players from parts of the world that don't necessarily have the biggest hockey programs, don't necessarily have the biggest hockey international programs either. South Korea and Japan have produced 2 hockey players who have actually signed professional contracts, not just PTOs, but professional contracts in North America in the ECHL. Sung Woon Shin just signed a 1-year deal with the Norfolk Admirals of the ECHL. So I wanted to give a shout out to Sang Hoon Shin. Now, I don't know if you recall this, Seth, but on the women's side of things in hockey, North Korea actually played South Korea in I believe, Olympic hockey play a few years back, which was absolutely crazy. Especially like their handshakes in the lineup pregame and postgame as well. But on the men's side of things, South Korea hasn't necessarily been that great of a hockey nation. Now, he did play last year 31 games with the Atlanta Gladiators. And he played in 2023 also 70 games. Or I guess he played 2021, 2022 with the Atlanta Gladiators, and 2022, 2023 with them again. But he didn't, and he put up really good numbers. But he said that he didn't have high hopes after 2024 to like last year to be signed again. He was facing some injuries. He had some family things to deal with, but he was super excited that after a tryout to be signed again to the AHL, which is awesome. He's had a very short professional career playing, mostly just international competition in his late 20s. But at 31 years of age, a couple years back, putting up 30 goals in the ECHL. I mean, that's not nothing. Like, I'm not saying this guy's ever going to be in the NHL. I'm not saying this guy's ever going to be in the AHL. But that's not nothing, Seth. And what's cool about it is that hockey's growing worldwide. Now, I know this guy's a little bit of an older player, but hockey's growing worldwide to the point where South Korean hockey players are coming over to North America in a good league that is the ECHL. And mind you, a fucking tough league to play in. I mean, the East Coast League, as the fighters will say, is a jungle, even more of a jungle, even a deeper rooted jungle than that of the AHL. So it is cool to see a skilled guy like him actually get another chance to play in North America.
Absolutely. It's always fun just to see people have success at various levels and then see how it translates.
Absolutely. Now, another player, not necessarily from South Korea, but from Japan, who actually played in the NCAA for a good portion of his, actually throughout his entire college career at New Hampshire, was Kohei Sato. Now, he has also been playing for the Japanese international team, and he just got signed to the Orlando Solar Bears of the ECHL. So this will be his first time playing pro hockey in North America. He's 27 years of age. He actually played in the NAHL, so he did play Junior A, and he actually put up a ton of points for the Northeast Generals in 2016-2017. Wasn't the best player in college, as you can see here, and actually played his last year of college in the AHA, which again didn't really produce too much. Went over and played overseas pro for 3 seasons and actually spent the last year playing in the EIHL with the Belfast Giants. Now, the EIHL, I will say that it's a similar type of play to the ECHL. It's a very tough league to play in with not necessarily the highest skill. It's the top league in the UK. And he had his best ever hockey season since junior, putting up 23 points and 11 goals. Also suited up for 3 playoff games. He was on a tryout for the ECHL in camp, for the Orlando Solar Bears in camp, and he impressed them enough to be signed as well. So shout out to 2 Asian nations and their top players who are now going to be playing in North America again for Sato and for Sang-Hoo Shin, a guy who's actually coming back as well to play pro. So very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. I love international hockey. I love the game of hockey as a whole, and it's just cool to see little stories like this, even at the ECHL level.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, 2 more things here, Seth. 2 more things, and this one, as a movie buff yourself, I think this one will tickle your fancy a little bit. Now, we're a little bit late to just talking about this story, but it's a fun one nonetheless. In 1982, a young goaltender, Seth, was selected and set to play major junior hockey with the Windsor Spitfire of the OHL. That player's name was none other than the famous actor Keanu Reeves. Now, you knew he was a hockey fan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Big hockey guy. Unfortunately, he got injured, and also starting to fall in love with film and acting at that time, he decided to quit hockey and pursue an acting career. Now, he was actually a very good junior player and won various tournaments, various competitions, and championships in his respected junior leagues before gaining interest from the OHL and before being scouted to play for the Windsor Spitfire in the early 80s. This last August, he signed a 1-day contract with the Windsor Spitfire and basically signed autographs and kissed babies at a Windsor Spitfire charity event, and decided with the team to have an auction and auction off a lot of gear that he signed, a lot of hockey memorabilia and Windsor Spitfire memorabilia that he signed, as well as auctioning off jerseys of his that said, Reeves on a Windsor Spitfire jersey, the jersey that he was never able to put on and play when he was young and slated to play in the OHL. All proceeds went to the Canadian Mental Health Association of Windsor as well. Now, I love hearing about this, and obviously, you being the movie buff, you've probably seen Youngblood, probably even more than me.
That man is fucking an animal.
And though his French accent in that movie wasn't the greatest, it was in an article and in an interview preceding this event, he was saying that he was so thrilled as a young actor to be able to be involved in a hockey movie like that, arguably one of the better hockey movies. Now, I know there's not a lot to choose from, and a lot of people put Slapshot as their number 1, but I respect people putting Youngblood as number 1 as well. And Seth, he was actually so good of a goaltender that his nickname was The Wall in minor hockey and in junior. But anyways, yeah, just talk about this story and when it first went across your desk.
It's funny because we, like you said, we don't see this happen all that much, and I think it adds to the mystique that has become Keanu Reeves. He was known for all the Matrix movies, like in addition to some of his other films like Youngbloods.
Bill and Ted for me is always the first one I think of.
Bill and Ted is an iconic, but like he's had this renaissance with all these John Wick movies too. Like he just has found ways to stay in the spotlight and to stay relevant. And you add into his long list of talents, the ability to be a pretty darn good hockey player too.
Yeah, and I've read so many stories, and not even like recently, but like throughout my life and obviously his life and his career, that like when he was living in California, for example, he would just show up at like pickup roller hockey games. Like kind of circle back to like Luongo. We didn't have Facebook probably at the time then. Nor do I think Keanu Reeves is even active on Facebook, but he would just like, skate around, see where the pickup games happened and at what time, and just show up there randomly and either put on the pads to play goalie or just, skate around with the boys playing roller hockey, which I thought was really cool. And imagine like how starstruck some of these guys must have been to be like, are you kidding me? Like, hey, can I play?
Like, of course you can. We've got a spot for you.
Speaking of hockey movies though, out of like the big ones, and we're talking like, Youngblood, we're talking Slapshot, Goon, Miracle, like, I actually haven't seen Indian Horse yet, but I heard that one was fucking awesome. That one that came out a few years ago. So if it is good, by all means, like make an argument for it being in the top rankings. But like, what are your favorites? And we won't necessarily do the list right now, but like, what gets the number 1 or 2 spot?
Oh boy, geez, putting me on the spot here a little bit. I mean, I think if you are putting any list together for Keanu Reeves,
but I'm just saying hockey movies in general.
Oh, I suppose
because there's not a few. There's only a few, right? So like,
Slapshot, Goon, both
Slapshot, Goon,
Mighty Ducks, Miracle,
Miracle, Youngblood, and again, like I said, I haven't seen Indian Horse yet, but I heard it was really, really, really good.
I think I would probably lean towards. Oh boy, I don't want to say anything controversial.
Well, I don't think there is anything. I think this is a very. I don't think any take is a hot take for this one because there's so few of them and they're all really good and they all kind of have their own cult following. It's something I like to ask everyone because I think everyone's is a little bit different and it's tough because you can make an argument for Slapshot being number 1. You can make an argument for Miracle being number 1. You can make an argument for Youngblood being number 1. And though Hoppy's going to roll his eyes if he listens to this, you can make an argument for Goon being number 1. Now, I think Mighty Ducks, like, I just can't because like we're just too old and it's too corny. It obviously was like a big part of our childhood and whatnot, but like there's some nostalgic childhood movies that I'll watch and just be like, hell yeah, I still like this. I still enjoyed that as an adult. Obviously not as much as but I rewatch Mighty Ducks now, 1, 2, or D3, and I just cringe, which I don't with the other movies now.
Yeah, they were fun as kids, but I don't know that they necessarily hold up. Some of the stuff that they do, like even me being a kind of annoying, nitpicky, some of the stuff that they do, like from the hockey side, you're like,
yeah, Team Iceland pretending to be Russia.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that way. I mean, I would probably go Slapshot.
Yeah, I'm there too.
But I would definitely hear arguments.
It's the classic. I think it's, yeah. And I mean, hey, some of the language in Slapshot probably doesn't hold up today. Probably you couldn't make a movie with that same script here today, but it's still it's just legendary for what it is. And it painted the picture in more of a goofy sense, but of what, like, ECHL /AHL hockey was back then, right?
Oh yeah,
and obviously an exaggerated version, but definitely that. And I'm in the minority where I think Goon is the next one, just because I think it was brilliant. Then for me, Youngblood, and then Miracle. But again, like, it's not like I'm hating on Miracle saying that. I love Miracle, and I love watching it every time I do. And I know people are going to be listening to this is like, oh yeah, the Canadian not putting Miracle in his top 3, but it has nothing to do with that, bro. It has nothing to do with that. Now, if now watch me watch Indian Horse and be like, oh yeah, that one's better than Miracle too. But anyways, yeah, I guess we have some homework. We should watch Indian Horse and report back, because I heard it's awesome. It's about one of the first quote unquote pro Indigenous players that, like, when hockey in like Northern Canada started to become a business, and all these like rich business owners were paying basically players to put on entertainment before like the league was an actual like sanctioned league, when they were just like paying hockey players to put on games to entertain the brasses. Like, he was one of the first Indigenous players to actually get paid to play. It actually might have been at the time where there was like some leagues. Again, I saw the preview for it like a few years ago. I just never got around to watching it, but I heard it did pretty well in the box office too.
Let's do that for next week.
I haven't watched
a little homework.
Wow, I've very much just been listening to the podcast and watching fights, so I'm down for that.
Me too.
Right, we will report back. Okay. Just want to take this quick break to tell you about our friends at Northland Vodka. Northland Vodka is my favorite vodka and the best vodka in the state, hell, in the country. That is right. A local company, Mark Parrish and the crew, have the best vodka recipe. Whether you want to drink it straight on the rocks or use it for your cocktails and the best mixed drinks that you can put together, Northland Vodka is the only vodka you should be thinking of using. A local company too, which is amazing. Great people, love working with them, and they're going to continue to be at various events for the rest of the fall here and moving into the winter. Cherry on top, a percentage of every sale goes back into the community, goes back into local hockey. So what are you waiting for? Go get you some Northland Vodka today, a proud partner of the Sota Pod. Final topic, Seth. Final topic. And I know we've gone long, so thank you for your time. But I wanted to get your thoughts, because last week I gave my unfiltered and raw reaction to the PWHL logo and also name reveal for every team in the league. And again, it was a genuine reaction. I'd never seen them. I hadn't planned anything. I didn't take any notes prior. I was like, oh, they've released them now. Let me bring them on screen. Let me react to them. And overall, I will say that my reaction was positive, more so towards the logo, less so towards the name. Bro, like typical sports fans, the hockey world, I feel like, is way more glass half empty on this reveal than a half glass full, especially fellow podcasters on our Sota Pod network, Spoke Z and Hoppy, who carved every single one of these. So, Seth, let's start with let's just dive right into it. Logos and names, however you want to start this. The floor is yours. I want your reaction, your critique, your thoughts on the inaugural 6 logo and names for the PWHL.
I mean, honestly, there are only really a few that are, head scratchers.
I mean, there's only a few in general here, though.
Well, yeah, true. Minnesota Frost is fine. Like, I don't know that I necessarily really like it, but I understand the tie to Minnesota, and I like that they kept the color scheme.
Yeah, because
I think Minnesota, especially, I think the ties to the color purple with obviously Prince with the Minnesota Vikings, I think it's a really smart decision by the PWHL to really emphasize and enforce that as part of the PWHL brand here in Minnesota. So I am fine with it. Some of the others,
and a singular name, right?
Yeah.
It fits like the wild, not the wilds. The frost, not the frosts.
It makes sense. The ones that I am kind of confused by, the Ottawa Charge. The Charge is fine, but the logo I saw a lot of people on social media saying it looks like the Calgary Flames and the Cleveland Cavaliers had a baby.
Well, that's exactly it. But it, and I get that, so maybe it's a little lazy, but I don't think it's bad. Like, yes, that is a factor that we can critique and be like, okay, they're a little lazy with it because they basically just took two other logos and mashed them together. But I think it looks good, personally.
If they would have,
pardon me, Seth, you're being too nice here. If you hate it, just let me know. I'm for the sake of conversation, because I didn't have anybody to be a soundboard with last time.
I would have, if they changed the color scheme, I don't have a problem with that logo. But the fact that they went with basically the same colors as those two teams, to me it looks too similar.
Okay,
like
fair
to
enough.
The Flames and the Cavs. You and I were talking about this before we started recording. I think the Victory de Montreal is it's too busy. Like, yeah. The logo
doesn't it remind you of the Capitals too.
Yes. I see the bird. I see the bird in the logo. I think my favorite of the six is the Boston Fleet.
I love it.
It sounds badass.
Hates it, bro.
Well, then he's gonna have to deal with that.
Dude, ode to the Whalers and a B. Are you with the waves? Are you kidding me? It's a beautiful logo. I love it.
And you can make all of the different nautical puns, like ship puns when you score. I'm really excited for all of the different freeze puns that I'm going to be able to use that tie in with Frost for the Minnesota Frost. The Toronto Scepters, I did get a chuckle because when Alex and I talked about this, I had to confirm what a scepter was. Like, I knew what it was, but Alex, and then I listened to Bar Down Beauties, and Jesse and Kirsten weren't sure what a scepter was either. So it's funny that everybody's like, wait, what is a scepter? And sirens. I like the color scheme for the New York Sirens. I guess I'm just a little confused as to the logo, but
I love the color schemes, but I'm biased because it's Vancouver Grizzlies. And
there you
that
go.
Is one of the best color schemes and arguably one of the best NBA jerseys of all time.
I had completely forgotten about the Vancouver Grizzlies, but
this is Vancouver Grizzlies colors. So that's why I was just like, oh, I like it. Logo, it's whatever. It's an N, it's a Y, and it says Sirens. I don't really care for the name. I think it's kind of cheesy, but the colors make up for it, in my opinion. Yeah. Fuck Toronto's though, man. Like even like honestly, like yellow and blue, yeah, it's good, whatever. But like, I'm just gonna hate on it because it's lazy. It's lazy as well. It's like, oh, TS in a scepter, bro. I think I'm just being salty because I hate everything Toronto. I was very, very like even this font sucks. I was very open about that on the last podcast.
I would say Boston and Minnesota probably did the best.
Yep.
Of the six.
Yeah, rank them. Let's rank them.
I'm going to go Boston number one. I think Fleet just sounds badass. Like,
yeah. And the logo is the best one too.
Yeah. So I'll go Boston 1, Minnesota 2. Probably put
Breeze
the
tough.
Sirens 3rd. Then I'll go Ottawa 4th, Toronto 5th, Montreal 6th.
Montreal's looks nice, right? But it looks nice as like a shoulder patch, not as like the logo.
Yeah. That's a great point. Is that would have been perfect as like because teams have like you get your primary logo and then teams have like the secondary too.
Mm-hmm.
That would be perfect as a secondary logo. Yeah. But I don't think it.
Same with Sirens. Shoulder patch.
I don't think it's enough, and it just doesn't scream. And it's a thing too where you either are or you aren't. Like they just don't look like primary logos to me.
Yeah, for me, Boston number 1 as well. Minnesota number 2. What I will say about Minnesota's is it looks like an esports logo. Like it doesn't not look like an esports team logo.
It does, yeah.
So I mean, like it's not bad. It's not bad. It's just like, is it is it hockey? I don't know. It's hard to say that any of these are I mean, actually, I don't know. Boston's is a cool like hockey logo. But yeah, for some reason I just get esports vibes from the Frost, but I like it. It's simple. As Don Taylor from Sportsnet always says, if a kid can draw your hockey logo or any sports logo, it's a good logo. It needs to be beautiful but simple. And so I'll say, yeah, Boston 1, Minnesota 2. For the colors, I'll say Sirens. It gets the edges because, like, again, I'm biased there, but I'll admit it. I love the color scheme and whatever. I'll live with that. Toronto's like isn't a bad logo, but it's like I have no idea what any sort of connection is from Scepter to Toronto. It's like they just chose a name and then a logo and ran with it. But like, as much as I hate Toronto, and you know, I do over exaggerate sometimes. Not my hatred for them, but just like kind of throwing everything into that hate column when there is like some good there. It's not a bad logo. Like it makes sense. It's a Scepter. It's TS. It works. It just I don't get it. But okay, so Boston 1, Minnesota 2. We'll say Sirens 3. I'll go Ottawa 4 as well. Again, the caveat that like, yeah, I was lazy putting it together, but like say someone looked at this and didn't know Cavaliers, didn't know Flames, and they just saw this, you'd be like, okay, that's fine. I get it. I'm all right with it. Toronto 4, and then yeah, Victoire, just because like it's just too busy, man. Like if they even just didn't put the name in it and just went heavy fleur-de-lis, like if they just did like the bottom, like even just that like little diamond on the bottom there, if they just went heavy fleur-de-lis with that, I'd be fine with that too, because that's very Francais. Like that is French. So I don't know. I would have been okay if it was just very like just play into the fleur-de-lis. It's like I know New Orleans does it. I know a lot of like minor league French teams do it, but just like whatever. That's at least like something culturally related, and it makes sense. But I don't know. That one just seemed a little too busy for me.
And at the end of the day, you know, it's like I said, I don't know that I like am enamored by Minnesota Frost, but I also it's fine.
Yeah, I guess
I don't deeply hate it.
Yeah, I didn't set but apparently if you don't love it, you have to hate it in this day and age, Seth, with everything in life. So that's the thing. Like I didn't set my expectations incredibly high. And so I was like, I don't mind these because I didn't think that they were going to be anything better.
I'll continue to do whatever I damn well please.
There you go. Bro, don't get me started on yesterday, UFC at the Sphere in Vegas. Everyone is either loving it or shitting on it. And I'm just kind of like, it was better than I thought, and the fights were good. Yeah. Can't really say much more.
If it beat your expectation, if it lived up to your expectations, bingo. If not, well, then
I mean, the Mexicans went 1 for 6 on Mexican Independence Day weekend on Noche UFC, but that's a story for another day. Some topics we're going to talk about next week, folks. More NHL players retiring. Hell, former Minnesota Wild players retiring. We'll talk about them next week. Some huge KHL news. Not that league needs to expand anymore, but they are expanding again, Seth. We'll talk about that next week, as well as more recent and topical news and tidbits from your Minnesota Wild. Seth, before we hang up the skates here, what do you got coming up this week on Locked on Wild?
More player profiles, gearing up for the start of the season. We also will be recapping the Prospect Showcase. You and I will be discussing the Metropolitan Division as we continue our divisional previews. And in a couple short weeks, the season is here.
Can't wait, buddy. Thank you so much. As always, Seth, I will see you for the Metro Division preview, roundup / preview on Friday on Locked on Wild. So be sure to check it out on wherever you get your podcasts. For Seth's feed or on the Locked on Wild YouTube channel. And Seth, I'll see you back on the Sota Pod next week. Thank you very much, Seth. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for the show. I know we went long, but there was a lot of hockey talk, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of hockey talk. So, man, I think this is the longest we've gone without doing a hoppy hour. 2 episodes running, no hoppy hour. Trust me, we will get back to it next week. I promise, and hold me to it. I might have said that last time as well, but if so, at least you're going to be commenting on this video. Am I right? Am I right? No, but life has been absolutely crazy. I produce a lot, if not all of the audio on this little network that we have, the Sota Pod. So between that, my channel, and just work last week, it just got too crazy. And as much as drinking beer probably would have helped ease the stress, ease the pain, I just didn't have enough time to do an additional beer review, let alone finish the one that I'm working on right now. But it will be awesome. It will be awesome. I'm just putting in a little bit more editing than I usually do, having to do voiceovers over some of the B-roll and footage that I have at the breweries where I just didn't have a mic and it was too loud for me just to talk over everything that was going on with just my camera. But it's coming. It's going to be awesome. It's worth the wait. And for everyone on the audio side, you will get the condensed version of that as well. So thank you guys for your patience. Back with weekly and regular beer reviews next week, I promise. So thank you very much. Before I let you guys go, I just want to give a big shout out to our friends at Better Edge. If you haven't signed up on Better Edge yet, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your life? Because we are giving you a free $20 signing bonus if you go to betteredge.com/sotapod just to try out the app. That is right. It is a free platform with legal betting in the state of Minnesota among 44 other states. It's awesome, ladies and gentlemen. I can't wait to utilize it all NHL season. And I've already been using it every single week for my MMA and UFC picks. So if you see any that you want to challenge me on, hit me up. Let's freaking go. We'll go toe to toe in the octagon, baby. We will also be hosting a lot of tournaments and game day pick'ems this year as well, both for Minnesota Wild games, for the Minnesota High School Hockey State Tournament, for the NCAA Championship, as well as the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, I know we have time. We have some time till we get there, but you might as well get on the app now and get used to it. And again, betteredge.com/sotapod. Sign up by going to that link there, betteredge.com/sotapod. Claim your $20 signing bonus here today. Try out the app on us, ladies and gentlemen. And they're also a local company. We love working with local companies, ladies and gentlemen. Local company, great people, and it's been a blast making some money from Better Edge, ladies and gentlemen. If you already use the app and you want to get more out of it, you can become a premium player. betteredge.com/premium. Premium players have access to free entry to premium pick'em contests, order grades, advanced order filterings, API access, and more. So check it out if you want to go above and beyond, if you want to get the most out of the app. But if you're just starting out, like I said, betteredge.com/sotapod, claim your $20 sign up bonus today. Find Hoppy and myself on the app and win some money. Better Edge, a proud partner of the Sota Pod. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, that is the show. We went long with hockey talk here today. We'll get back to the beer reviews next week. Buddy on YouTube, who is triggered that I had Todd Bertuzzi on my desk. Triggered that though I live in Minnesota and I've been the host of this podcast for over 5 years now. Bro, woosah. There's more to life than freaking out, finding out that a host of your favorite podcast wasn't born in Minnesota. I'm half American, motherfucker. I've jumped in quite a few of the lakes thus far. All right. Oh, now he's going to rip me for not wearing a Minnesota Wild jersey. Bro, I got a fucking Waggle hat on in every episode. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? Anyways, hockey season is back, ladies and gentlemen. Preseason just around the corner, and I'm so excited to go on this ride this year again with all you amazing folks. As always, SotaPod going to be a little irregular with the posting schedule. I'm always going to try to post it on Mondays. Sometimes it will come out Tuesdays. It just depends how busy I am, especially with us adding new shows, especially with us now having Fellowship of the Rink full time this whole season. I'm doing all the editing on the audio side of things, and sometimes it's just going to get busy, but Seth and I are going to continue to do these podcasts. They just might be a day late or a day early, but always around the start of the week, you will get a SotaPod video. On YouTube, you will get a SotaPod podcast, wherever you get your podcast apps. And thank you to all the OGs who've been with us for the last 5 years. I really appreciate you guys. Anyways, smash that like button on YouTube if you're watching. Leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, as it helps us get in front of more listeners, and commenting on the video and liking gets us in front of more eyes on YouTube. So subscribe to the channel. Weekly live streams, watch-alongs for various Minnesota Wild games this season. I already posted all the games that I will be hosting a watch-along for, and I'll post them early every month as well. So like halfway through October, shoot, even the start of October, you'll see all the November ones be posted as well. Right now, we got Columbus, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Florida, Tampa, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. A ton of watch party / watch alongs for you guys to hang out with us and watch the game and hear a different play-by-play voice as I interact with you guys in the live chat for all those games. So if that's not incentive to join us on YouTube, I don't know what is. Daily videos, live streams every week, Judd's Buds, as well as watch alongs. Hit us up on YouTube, baby. Hit us up on YouTube. But anyways, thank you to Seth, as always. Catch me on his show, Locked on Wild, every Friday. Thank you for tuning in on Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. Signing off, I'm Isha Drome alongside Seth Toupal. This has been the Sota Pod, presented by our friends at Better Edge, 7th Avenue Pizza, Northland Vodka, and Waggle Golf. Don't fear, just drink some beer and stay wild.